Getting the right wedges for your game can take you from looking like a 28 handicap duffer to performing like Tiger Woods around the greens. But wedges are confusing. Where do you start? Think of all the terms you've got. You've got lofts, and you've got bounce, and you've got grinds, and you've got a head shape, and you've got shaft flex. All of these different terms, where on earth do you start? Well, in this video, it's a complete guide to getting the right wedges for your game. Now, when it comes to wedges, I'm no expert. I'm a golf coach. I can coach you how to use them, but I don't know much about the fitting process. So I reached out to my good friends at TaylorMade to see if they could help. Is there any chance you can get me into one of your fitting centres in the next, I don't know, couple of weeks to look at some wedges? Tomorrow in Manchester? Yeah, I think so. What time? Yeah, let's do it. Book it in. Perfect. So that's great news. TaylorMade have got some new wedges, some MG4s. I'm using currently the MG3s, but I've had these for like probably over a year now, and I've never actually been properly fitted for wedges. These have just been kind of put in the bag based on my experience. So all that's left now is to get it to Manchester. So I've just arrived. Manchester Golf Club, the fitting centre, I believe, is over there. So I'm going to jump in, get loosened up, meet Henry, and get started. So I'm back in the office, and whilst it's kind of fresh in my mind after that incredible experience, I've made a note here of 6 things that I think you need to consider when looking at wedges. Now, this can be just when you're just buying wedges to go in your bag, or if you're going for a fitting like I've had, things that are really important to consider. First up, don't assume that your wedges are just an extension of your irons. They're not. They may require different shafts, and they may require different lie angles to suit your game.
You've got there the same shaft in the 60-degree wedge, that Dynamic Gold X1 Tour issue, that you have in your irons, that you hit full shots with, that, you know, with a 7-iron you're swinging at probably, what, 95 miles an hour. Now, when you're hitting a 60-degree lob wedge, you're probably not swinging at 95 miles an hour. So it's going to change the feel. And that's, you know, shaft flex and weight is based upon how fast we're swinging that golf club and the tempo that we've got. Now, when you go into playing a shot with that, are you at the same speed and tempo as you are with your irons? No. So that's why you'll see a lot of players will actually tend to go into maybe, you know, same kind of profile, because you don't want to lose that feel that you have from the shaft, but maybe dropping down a weight or dropping down a flex.
Well, it does feel a little bit different, the shaft. It does feel a little bit softer.
You can almost hear it spinning.
Yeah.
So straight away there, you know, same 60-degree wedge, just the change in the shaft there. Yeah, again, you know, obviously the new face in the MG4 as well, having those, you know, those really strong grooves. You added 2,000 revs of spin. For you playing X100s at the moment, this might be quite a difference by dropping weight really, you know, that far down, but something like a Tour issue S400 or something, for example, would probably work quite nicely in the wedges, give you a little bit more feel as well.
That makes sense. Number 2, distance is everything. And I'm talking about how far you carry the golf ball. So don't assume that just because you've got the right lofts on the bottom of the golf clubs, the ball's going to go the right distance. I found this out today, and it caused to make a slight change in the lofts that I'm using.
To start with, just a little bit of distance gapping to see where that 52 sits. Now, you said that you feel like it falls a little bit short and maybe you don't play that full shot. Is it time that we maybe try and push you into either a 50, or what do we do is we maybe just strengthen that 52 by a degree? So we've got some numbers for your wedge there. You know, obviously apples for apples today, talking about that range ball a little bit as well.
Uphill, into the wind, cold, get all the excuses in.
And carry distance around the kind of just over 130, like 133. So that's maybe 10 yards short of where you'd expect to be with the wedge. So let's get you to hit some shots with that 52 to start with.
With mine?
Yep.
Oh, that was a bad one.
Good. 16 yards.
Is it?
On average. You know, so there at 16, it's a little too shy of where we'd maybe want it to be. I'd like to see you just hit a couple of shots with a 15, just see if we can get that yardage up a touch. just to see where that starts to sit. So
this is 50.
50, yeah. .132 average with the pitching wedge. In the 52, it's at 116. And then in the 50, we're up to 121.
Okay.
So it's that extra 5 yard push that gets you back down to kind of that 10, 11 yard gap that we'd be looking for.
Yeah. Data isn't everything. It's great to have that, you know, the launch and the spin and the carry distance, but go with feel, go with touch. Look at different shafts and different bounce angles and understand how they feel different when you're playing a variety of shots. Today, I found that really, really valuable.
This will be majority feel based, these next few shots.
I tell you what, it does feel different off the face.
Yeah. And even just go now a little bit shorter for me. So go into maybe like a little 30 yard pitch where you can really start to feel, you know, the shaft a little bit more. Very nice.
I'd probably say on that 30 yard shot, it felt more different than the 70 yard shot.
Yeah.
I felt a big difference in that then.
Yeah. Would you say a short game's a strong point for you?
No. I don't think it ever has been.
No.
That feels really nice though, I like that. Feels really nice.
I think interesting just the shaft there as well, giving you a little bit more feel when that swing speed does drop down.
So this is a small point. I wasn't sure whether to put this in here, but you might hit a lot of shots if you're going for a fitting. You might get a little fatigued, you might lose a little rhythm, a little bit of timing. So don't be afraid to step off the mat, take a little break, have a drink and sort of recompose yourself and then go back into that session. You might find that it helps you kind of perform at the level that you know you can. Bounce with a wedge is everything. I was blown away by how a golf club can go from being really quite tricky to use and feeling quite awkward in my hands to something that felt easy and really leveled up my confidence. So changing bounce is huge. You've got to get that right for you. I'd encourage you to try different bounces and find the one that works with your delivery and your game.
You know, now currently in the new MG4 series, we've currently got 7 different 60-degree wedge, like bounce and grind options.
Okay, right,
okay. Yeah. So we've got 2 standard grind options. So we've got just a very standard, you know, almost plain sole there, and then we move into the standard bounce C grind, which is a little bit more versatile.
Yeah.
We've got 2 options in low bounce, 2 options in high bounce, and then the TW grind as well. So there's so much there for different golfers. When we start to look at being fit for that wedge, there comes down to a couple of different factors. A lot of people would say, you know, who maybe aren't well versed on wedge fitting would say, it's just all about attack angle. If you're steep, you'd be looking for higher bounce.
Yeah.
If you're shallow, you're probably looking at lower bounce. But what can also influence that is shaft length. So if you play from the back of the stance and you actually have that shaft, if you want to set up to this for me, and if that ball's in the back of your stance there, so ball's in the back of the stance, you can see there the shaft lean now, yeah? So from there, what you're doing is you're going to be hitting down onto that golf ball, but you'll also be taking off a lot of bounce. As that loft gets stronger, that shaft lean comes in, so you're also removing bounce there as well. So then if you're a golfer that tends to play a lot of those kind of back foot, lower chip shots, what kind of bounce do we need in terms of your release pattern?
So am I right in saying then that if that says 10 degrees of bounce, that's basically only got 10 degrees when that shaft is vertical?
When the head is at 60 degrees,
So when you've got 60 degrees there, so if you start doing this with the shaft, you're affecting
absolutely.
the
So
bounce,
if you were to take 5 degrees of loft off by going forwards in terms of shaft lean there, all of a sudden you've now effectively only got 5 degrees of bounce.
Okay. And as a general rule, do you think golfers are better with higher or lower? I know it is going to be dependent, but if you were to take, if I had to say to you, right, you're going to speak to 1,000 golfers if asked this question, would you rather them go high bounce or low bounce?
High bounce will always be a little bit easier. If you've got somebody, as an example, if you were to stand there and open that face for me, you know, really, really open that face. Now you can see how that leading edge really sits up off the mat now. Now, if you were to then be shallow and try and deliver that loft, that leading edge is halfway up the golf ball. What kind of shot are you going to hit from there?
Exactly.
You know, so that's where, in terms of maybe technique, as well as the appropriately fitted wedge is very important. Attack angle, shaft lean. Now you're going to get players that like to do all of that. like to vary their ball position, like to vary their hand position, play with open face, play with closed face, have different release patterns to see different launch angles. And so that's when we start to go into the more versatile grinds and have all these options for those players. How did that feel?
That felt pretty good, actually.
Turf.
It definitely feels a little different for each of those shots. Obviously,
Yeah.
you are delivering different amounts of loft, I guess, which is changing that, but it doesn't feel too bad.
Okay.
Is that a pretty wide sole?
Yes,
as well
that's
as
the
high
widest.
bounce?
Yeah, the widest that we offer. Yes. Okay. So interesting to go into this wedge now that you see that sole, especially on this top end here, where without the camber, is that is a lot thinner than the wide sole that we have here.
So, as a general rule, would this be less forgiving, the lower bounce one? Or is it not really?
Not necessarily. It would just again depend on your delivery here.
So it's interesting there. If you were to blindfold me, and give me those two clubs, it felt like the surface I was hitting off was different.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's the same back. But if I didn't know, it would almost to me feels like the ground is different.
Absolutely, because what you're doing there is you're seeing more of the ground with that, because the interaction of the golf club into the mat there. Yeah. So with the higher bounce wedge, you're actually releasing a lot better. You're actually utilizing the bounce when you try and release that golf club. You're utilizing the bounce, then helping to deliver more loft. You're seeing a better strike. There, it's almost a little thuddy, where if we were to get you onto turf there, it's going to be a little bit sticky, get stuck in the ground a touch, and maybe see those slightly heavier strikes as well.
That one felt easier for me.
Absolutely.
The higher bounce.
Yeah.
And finally, I appreciate this isn't doable for everybody, but if you're looking at new wedges, test them and try them outside, off turf, on the golf course. Bunkers, rough, fairway, hitting a variety of different shots. Today, when we did that, I found that really, really valuable. And I think this is a good example where, if I had a low bounce wedge, that would really drop my confidence down. I'd be now more apprehensive over this shot.
Have a look at what I've just given you.
Do I want to? That's all right. Yeah. Thanks. You could have made me look really silly then, but you've given me high bounce, which is good. Like, that's given me a lot of confidence. I feel like I can hit the ground pretty hard, and it's just going to kind of skip through. It doesn't feel like it's ever going to dig, and I need that in a wedge. I think I need that sort of,
there we go.
That confidence that. Say that heavy then.
Yeah,
that was perfect.
Lovely strike.
I like that because I need a club which builds confidence in me. I need to hit a couple of shots and then feel like the wedge is helping me.
So just feel, here you really be able to feel that bounce kind of come into its own as such. It obviously depends on how you play your bunker shots. Woo! Very nice.
That feels so easy.
Yeah.
That feels so easy.
Yeah, even when you take that speed off, right, it still feels like you can just drop that club down and the actual bounce is just going to help you release through.
Yeah.
Very good. Just try that with the 60 then for me as well, just to see kind of that lower, just to see that ball pop up a little higher. Nice. Oh yes.
Nice, that is. But again, I'm not a confident bunker player. I'm confident I get it out, but these feel like incredible. Honestly, they feel like.
So there's something that's maybe been missing. The one component missing from your short game in order to give you some confidence, even when you maybe feel like you haven't when you haven't hit a great shot, is to actually just add some bounce.
Yeah.
Give yourself that confidence that the club's going to help you on the way through, as opposed to just stopping, stalling, or anything like that.
I can't tell you how different that feels.
Yeah.
Especially, I think my 60's got 10, so that's got more, but that one feels like a world of difference.
Well, that's actually 14.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In that 56.
Right. Here they are. They've arrived. So I'm going to open this box and show you what is in here and just talk a little bit through kind of how they're set up, because they're quite different to what I had before. There's actually, I think, 4 big differences. So let's get it open and I'll talk you through those. There should be 3 wedges in here. There are. That's a good start. So these are obviously the MG4s, and the first difference is in lofts. So I used to go 52, 56 and 60, but I've now gone 50, 56 and 60. And that 50 is really key because basically it just bridges the gap better. You saw earlier in the video how we were talking about gapping and how I had too big of a gap between my pitching wedge and my 52. So going to 50 just makes that gap a little bit better. And it goes back to that point that I said, go on distances rather than what the numbers are on the bottom. So that's the first big difference. The second one, shafts. I was at X100 before, same as my irons, didn't like the way it felt, but didn't know that until I went for this fitting. As soon as I put something lighter and softer, felt a big difference, just in terms of how the ball came off the club face. And also we saw spin numbers really change as we went to a different shaft. So in these, I'm using the Dynamic Gold still, but they are the wedge shaft and they're 115 grams and much lighter. On the 56 and the 60, I've gone into more bounce. As well as high bounce, it's the HBW sole, which stands for high bounce wide. So it's a wider sole on the 60. So those kind of nervy shots around the greens, maybe it's a tight lie and I need a little bit of confidence, that's going to help me. I class myself as a fairly experienced golfer. I got those wedges based on my experience, but it just shows that I kind of knew nothing. Getting someone like Henry, who's an expert in that area, to look at my golf clubs, measure everything, give me options, we ended up with some different wedges. So these are going to go in the bag, ready for the 2024 season.